Okay, good morning to all of you. Whether this slide is visible, anybody else, please respond. Vikas Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's continue where we have left from the last class. Last class we have discussed about state table based testing. Any doubt on this? Anybody else who has gone through this? Any doubt on state table based testing? I have already told. First you construct the a state graph from a given finite state machine. Then construct the state table. Then there will some rows and the columns. I have already told you that the rows will represent the states of the finite state machine or the state graph. The columns will represent an input condition. Then the box are the intersection of a row and a column. It will specify the output, which means it will specify the next state and if any output is there. So then you construct this table containing the test case ID, test source from this state table, input will represent the current state and the event, and the expected output, that means the next state and if there is any output. This much we have discussed how to design test cases using state table based testing. So if there is any doubt you can ask, otherwise you will go to the next class. Okay, so I hope you have not read. But one question will follow from this part. There are several exercises and assignments. Please try to do from this Naresh Chauhan book as well as Rajimbol's book. Don't wait for my command. Okay, please practice those things. Then today we'll discuss about another black box testing technique, that is decision table based testing. How to design test cases using decision tables. I hope decision tables and decision trees you have already known your BTech career. I will just quickly revise what is a decision table and how this decision table can be used for generating black box test cases. So before this we have already seen how many black box testing what methods. We have seen equivalence class partitioning, we have seen boundary value analysis, we have seen state table based testing, isn't it? Three important types of black box testing techniques we have already seen. Now let's see what are the drawbacks of this boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning and how these drawbacks can be overcome. Boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning methods. One problem, one limitation of boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning method is that they do not consider combinations of input conditions. Only for specific inputs they design the test cases. But it is possible that there might be different conditions, input conditions, and you have to take the combinations of that. When condition A and condition B will occur, what will the output? Or when condition A or condition B will occur, what will the output? So we have to take the important combinations of the input conditions. Then how to design the test cases. Then boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning, they fail. So because they do not consider how to handle the combinations of input conditions, how to generate test cases based on the combinations of input conditions, they fail. So boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning methods, they do not consider combinations of input conditions. But there may be some critical behavior which need to be tested when some combinations of input conditions are considered. So when you are considering some combinations of input conditions such as A and B or A or B or A and not B, like that. So when some important combinations of input conditions are there, you are considering how to design the test cases, this boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning, they fail. There may be some critical behavior to be tested when some combinations of input conditions are considered. So in this case, decision tables, they come in handy. The decision table is another useful method. It is another useful technique to represent the information in a tabular method. You have already known by using decision tables, we can represent the information of a particular system or a particular project in a tabular method. This decision table has the speciality to consider complex combinations of input conditions and the resulting actions. So if you can construct a decision table for a particular problem, then it has the ability to consider the complex combinations of input conditions and the resulting actions. The decision tables obtain their power from logical expressions. Where do the decision tables they get so much power? The decision tables they obtain their power from where? From the logical expressions. Now, you know logical expressions, you have already known A and B or C, things like that. In a logical expression, each operand or each variable in a logical expression takes on what? Takes on the value true and false. One time you can give the value true, next time you can give the value false to each operand or each variable in a logical expression. Now let's see how you can form a decision table. You have already known earlier in BTech, BTech career. Still then I will quickly revise. A decision table has four important components, four important quadrants. One, condition stop. One, next action stop. Next, condition entry. Another is action entry. Okay. So these are the four important quadrants, four important components of a decision table. Let's see what do the condition stop represent. So the condition stop means it is a list of input conditions for which the complex combination is made. Okay. So this is the, you can see on the top left hand side, condition stop is there. Condition stop means it is a list of what? Input conditions. What could be the possible input conditions for which the complex combination has to be made. In this particular example, condition stop represents the list of the input conditions C1, C2 and C3. What do you mean by action stop? Action stop, it is also a list of what? Resulting actions. So action stop represents a list of resulting action which will be performed if a combination of input condition is satisfied. So if a combination of input condition is satisfied, what action has to be taken? For example, if C1 and C3 are satisfied true, what action you have to take? Action A2 has to be taken. If all C1, C2, C3 are true, which action has to be taken? Again A2 has to be taken. If only C3 has to be true, what action we have to take? That A3 has to be taken. Similarly, if condition 2 is true, what action you have to take? Action A2 has to be taken. So action stop means it is a list of resulting actions which will be performed if a combination of the input condition is satisfied. So that list of resulting actions is called as action stop. In my example, action stop represents the list of actions A1, A2 or A3. So C1, C2, C3 are the condition stops. A1, A2, A3, they represent the action stop. Now what is the third component? Condition entry. In condition stop, we are giving the conditions as a whole in general. But in condition entry, we have to make the specific entry out of C1, C2, C3, which one or which combination will hold good. So condition entry means it is a specific entry in the decision table corresponding what? Corresponding to the exact input conditions mentioned in the condition stop. So here C1, C2, C3 we have mentioned. Now you will see in the first case, which conditions will be combined? You can see in my first condition C1, C3 are combined. So I have made as true or trick or one, whatever that. So this is the one condition entry. Another case, what we are doing, I am making all C1, C2, C3 are true. This is another condition entry. Another case, what I am taking, only C3 is true. So another condition entry. Another case, what I am taking, only C2 is true. Whatever I mean, immaterial. C1, C3 may be whatever immaterial values. If C2 is true, directly take action A2. So in this way, this is another input. This is another condition entry. So condition stop means the generalized conditions, and condition entry means the exact, the specific value, the specific entry you want to enter for the your logical expression. So condition entry means it is a specific entry in the decision table corresponding to the input conditions mentioned in the condition stop. When the condition entry takes only two values, that means either true or false, then it is called a limited entry decision table. So you see here, when it takes the conditions out of only two possibilities, true or false, then it is known as limited entry decision table. But when the condition takes several values, then it is called extended decision table. So you can represent either true or false or 1 or 0. But if the condition entry takes several values, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, then in that case we call it as a extended entry decision table. When the condition entry takes several values, then it is called extended entry decision table. Now what is an action entry? Action entry, it is the entry in the table for the resulting action to be performed. Okay, so action entry means it is the entry in the decision table for the resulting action to be performed, exactly similar to condition stop. How condition stop and condition entry are related, in similarly action stop and action entry is related. In condition stop we are taking the generalized values, and in condition entry we are considering the specific values, specific entries. Similarly, in action stop we are considering the general values, the general actions, whereas in the action entry we have to take the specific action, the exact action. So that will represent the action entry. For example, for this first case, when C1 and C3 are true, then you have to perform A2. So now this cross or this A2 becomes the action entry for the case 1. So similarly, you find out the action entries for all other cases, for all other possible combinations of input conditions. Okay. So action entry means it is the entry in the table for the resulting action to be performed. First, you have to list all the actions that can be associated with the specific procedure. Then we have to list what? All the conditions. I am saying how you can perform how you can construct the decision table. First, what you do? List all the actions that can be associated with a specific procedure. Then list all the conditions during execution of the procedure. Then what you associate specific sets of conditions with specific actions. Okay. Then associate specific sets of conditions with specific actions and eliminate all the impossible conditions, combinations and combinations where never something will happen. Say sun rises, sun rises, and another is west. Sun cannot rises in west. So these are impossible combinations. In remove those things. So like one condition is it should be even number. Another value is that it is what you can say 3 or specific values. 3 cannot be an even number. So whenever any impossible condition combinations of conditions are there, please remove. Okay, so associate specific sets of conditions with specific actions, eliminating impossible combinations and the conditions. Alternatively, what you have to do? You have to develop every possible permutations of combinations. Evaluate how many such combinations you can form, how many number of possible permutation of combinations you can form. First you form, then what out of those possible combinations, what are not possible, you just remove those things. Okay. So in that way, see, there's a condition getting getting this driving license. Another condition is age is less than 18. So no way it is possible because below 18 years you cannot get a driving license. So in that way, consider which are impossible combinations of the conditions. You just discard them. Associate specific sets of conditions with specific actions, eliminating impossible combinations and conditions. Alternatively, you have to develop every possible permutation of conditions. So then you define the rules by indicating what action occurs for a set of conditions. So for a set of conditions, what action need to be taken, that can be defined as a rule. For example, in my example, I can say that when C1 is true and C2 is true, take action A2. So this is my first combination of conditions. So this is rule 1. When all the conditions C1, C2, C3 happens, what will the action you have to take? Again A2, another rule. When only C3 is satisfied, say you have to perform action A3, another rule. When only condition 2 is true, whatever may be the conditions for C1, C3, perform action A2. This is another rule. So like this, for every possible combinations of conditions, frame different rules. Why I am forming the rules? Why I am framing the rules? Because alternatively, at the end, you will see These rules will be treated as the test cases. From the rules, you can design the test cases. Okay. Now I am summarizing how to design test cases using decision tables. So first what you do, interpret the condition stops as the input for the test cases. Test case means you have to design input and expected output. So from the decision table, if you are considering, if you are constructing what will the inputs, the stops will be represented as the condition stops will be represented as the input. So consider or interpret the condition stops as the inputs for the test case. Now what will the output? Interpret the action stops are the expected output for each test case. So all the each action stop can be considered as one of the expected output. Then what the rules will be considered? The rule. How we are getting the rule? The rule we are getting by the combination of input combination conditions. So rules, which is the combination of the input conditions, they become the test cases themselves. So the each rule becomes a test case itself. Now there is a rule. If a decision tree, there are k number of, in a decision table, if there are k number of rules, then how many test cases you can design? There is a straightforward rule. It says that if there are k rules over n binary conditions, okay, if in your decision table there are n binary conditions, you have framed k rules, then there can be minimum k number of test cases and maximum 2 to the power n number of test cases. Okay, so please remember that thing. So if there are k rules over n binary conditions, there are at least k test cases and at most 2 to the power n test cases. So for example, in your decision table, suppose there are 4 number of conditions and there are 3 number of rules, then minimum you have to design 3 number of test cases and maximum 2 to the power 4, that is 16 test cases you can design. Okay, this is how you can design test cases using decision table. So first step is construct the decision table, then consider the condition stops as the input of your test case, then consider the action stop as the expected output of the test case, give every test case give a test case ID, the rules will become the test cases themselves. Okay. Now we'll take some examples to clarify it. Suppose there is a program you have to write. A program calculates the total salary of an employee with the conditions that if the working hours are less than or equal to 48, then give normal salary. So maybe 48 you can consider if you take this weekend, so then 6 days, 8 hours per day, so 8 into 60, 8 into 6, 48. So a program calculates the total salary of an employee with the conditions that if the working hours are less than or equal to 48, then give the normal salary as usual. If the hours they become over 48 normal working days, they are calculated at the rate of 1.25 of the salary. Okay. The hours over 48 normal working days are calculated at the rate of 1.25 of the salary. That means overtime. If some employee every day works suppose 2 hours more, so whatever that the total amount, so the hours greater than 48 normal working days. So I think, I'm sorry, this is not normal work. It should be 48 hours. It's written already. The hours over 48 hours on normal working days are calculated at the rate of 1.25 of the salary. However, if an employee is working also on holidays and Sundays, then the hours are calculated at the rate of 2 times of the salary. That means if a person is coming working also in Sunday or holidays, then you have to give double of his salary. Now we have to design the test cases using decision table testing. Please remember, decision table based testing is applicable when there are number of conditions are there. Then only you should go for the decision table testing, otherwise not. So what I have to do, I have to first perform the construct the decision table. Decision table means 4 quadrants, 4 components: condition stop, action stop, then condition entry, action entry. So here if you read the program thoroughly, what are the conditions? First condition is that whether the working hour is greater than 48 or not. First condition. Then another condition is that for overtime, and that overtime whether it is in normal days or holidays. So that's why I am taking first condition is working hours greater than 48. Second condition is whether this is a holiday or a Sunday, because if it is a holiday or Sunday, I have to give double times of the salary. Now you can read the problem. What are the possible actions? In action step, I have to write first is pay normal salary, because if it is equal to or less than equal to 48 hours, give normal salary. So A1 is first action, give normal salary. What is the second action? If he is doing extra work but in working days, then I have to give 1.25 of the salary. So action 2 is 1.25 of the salary. What is the next case? That for next possible what action is, if he is working on holidays or Sundays, I have to give twice of the salary. So action 3 is 2 times of the salary. Now all the conditions of stops I have written, all the action stops I have written. Now I have to write down the condition entries and the action entries. I have to form different rules. What are the possible combinations? What are the possible permutations of the input combinations? I have to find out. Let's see. First of all, you see, if the person is working in a holiday or Sunday, then whatever may be working hours, I do not bother. I stands for material. If he is working on Sundays or holidays, what I have to give? I have to give twice of the salary. So twice of the salary is written in which action? A3. So A3 will be executed. Next, I will see again read the problem. What is the other condition? That working hours is greater than 48? No. It is a holiday or Sunday? No. That means what? He is doing normal work. Work is less than 48 hours, also on working days. So what action I should take? Give normal salary. What is written? A1. So if the work, it is not a holiday or Sunday, the working hour is not greater than 48, that means less than 48, then I have to give normal salary, so A1. And what is the other option? If he is working greater than 48 hours, but it is not a holiday or Sunday, it is a normal day. It is on normal day. So what action I have to take? I have to give 1.25 of the salary. Where it is written A2, 1.25 of the salary. So in this way, I have seen, I have looked at the problem, I have analyzed that there are two possible conditions and there are three possible outcomes, three possible actions. Then I have framed different combinations of the input conditions, and accordingly I have marked what are the actions. So three rules I have got. That means what I can do. How many what conditions I have seen? Two conditions I have seen. Three rules I have framed here. So now, so what I will do here? How many maximum test cases, minimum test cases I can design? If there are k rules over n binary conditions, in my case 3 rules, and how many how many rules we have framed here? 3 rules. And how many conditions we have found out? There are 2 conditions. That means I can design maximum, I can design minimum 3 test cases and maximum 2 square, that is 4 test cases. So now let us design the test cases. First, you have to put a test case ID. I have already told you the rules will become the test cases themselves. Then input, I have to take some input. So there are 3 possibilities you can take. Like here there are 2 inputs. One is working hour. Next is the day, because based on the day I have to find out whether it's a holiday or what Sunday. So 2 inputs I have to take, the working hour and the day. So now I can choose randomly values. So if it is less than or equal to 48 and it is a working day, which rule I should follow? See, it is a less than or equal to 48 and it is a normal one. It is a normal one. So like this one, that means if it is a working hours is exactly less than 48 and it is not a holiday, means it is working day. What I have to give? Normal salary. So rule 2 I have to take. So if I will take rule 2 says what? You give normal salary. A1 is the action, give normal salary. So now I have to write expected output should be normal salary. Then I have to see what? Greater than this stipulated hour 48 hours. Then suppose I have taken 50 and the work day is a Tuesday. Tuesday is a what? Working day. So let's see the rule. If this is greater than 48, that means this one is greater than 48. it is a Tuesday. Tuesday is not a holiday or Sunday. So what is the action? Give 1.25 of the salary. So I have written 1.25 of the salary. This is the expected result. So there are two inputs, working hour and day, and one output expected result. Similarly, another case I can take, working hour is greater than 52. Which day I have take? Sunday. And you have already seen if it is greater than 48 or whatever may be, even if less than 48. But if it is a holiday or Sunday, holiday or Sunday, I have to give 2 times. So that's I have written 2 times of the salary. So in this way, I have seen minimum 3 number of test cases are required and maximum 4. Let's see if you can design more. So in this way, you can design the minimum number of test cases using decision table. So here all the rules effectively, they become the test cases here. For each rule, you have to write down the input and output, a specific input and output, that will become the test case. Okay, this is how we have done the decision table. Now let's quickly see one problem of this one. Expanding the immaterial cases in the decision table. You can see in my decision table, I have used some I. I means what? Immaterial. So now, what do you mean by immaterial? So working hours is greater than 48, whether it may true, may not be true. But if it is a holiday or Sunday, you have to give 2 times. Now, immaterial means now 2 cases are arising. Whether working hours is greater than 48 and whether working hours is less than 48. Whatever the case may be, you have to give the salary what? And if it is a holiday, you have to give twice. So now further I can expand this immaterial case by writing another two test cases by taking one's less than 48 and Sunday, another is greater than 48 and Sunday to make your test cases testing process more robust. That's what I'm saying. Immaterial conditions means expanding the immaterial cases in decision table. Immaterial conditions means these conditions mean that the value of a particular condition in the specific rule does not make a difference whether it is true or false, isn't it? Whether this I, that means greater than 48, it is true or false, that doesn't affect, because as long as it is a holiday or Sunday, you have to give twice of the salary. Sometimes expanding the decision table to spell out don't care conditions can also reveal some hidden problems. So that's why it's better you take 2 values, one for this true case, another for the false case. For example, here, what is the immaterial case? Working hour is greater than 48, I have taken immaterial. So that means 2 cases I can get here, working hours greater than 48 and working hours less than 48, because whatever that may be, as long as it is a holiday or Sunday, you have to pay twice. But explicitly you take one value for the working hour, which is less than 48, another value for the working hour, which is greater than 48, then you take Sunday or holiday. So this first condition can be divided into 2 sub-conditions. One, working hour greater than 48, along with the combination holiday or Sunday. 2, working hour is less than 48, along with the condition it is a holiday or Sunday. So now let us expand. So the now the immaterial test case in rule 1 of the above table can be expanded by taking both true and false values to C1. Once you give C1 value true, that is greater than 48. Next time you give C1 value to false, that means less than 48. Okay. So how I can do? See, now this rule I have divided into 2 rules, rule 1.1 and rule 1.2. Rule 2, 3 are already there. So what I am doing here? So C1 working hours greater than 48, no, false. Then it is a holiday or Sunday, true. Then output is give it 2 times of the salary. Even if both are true, working hour is greater than 48 and holiday or Sunday it is true, then also you have to give 2 point of the twice of the salary. So in this way, now the number of rules becomes 4. So we have to design 4 test cases. So if whether there is any immaterial case, to make your testing process more robust, you explicitly take 2 values, one for true and one for false value. Then what will the decision table? So 48 Monday we have already taken. This is you have to give normal salary in my previous example. Then 50 that we have already taken. Tuesday 1.25 that also we have already taken here. Second test case. Only third test case I have to divide into 2 test cases. One case I have to take already taken greater than 48, that is 52 here already I have taken. But another case explicitly have to take 52 Sunday, twice of the salary, and one test case for the false value I have to take working hours is less than 48 and it is holiday. So because sometimes you may commit the mistake, somebody may think it is less than 48, I will apply the original rule. If it is less than 48 is true, I may give only this normal salary. If it is less than 48, I may follow this one rule too. As a programmer, I may commit mistake and I am giving what this normal salary, which is wrong. So that's why explicitly we can take another test case where working hour is less than 48, that is 30, and day is this Sunday, then the expected result to be twice of the salary. But if you have written a program where the working hour is 30 and it is taking the normal rule, not and even if the day is Sunday, working hour is less than 30, but the day is Sunday, if it is still giving the normal salary by following the this rule 2, then some problem in your program. It should be twice of the salary, then you correct, then you check your program and correct the error. Okay, then you correct the error. This is how we can design test cases using the decision table based using decision tables. We'll quickly take another small example. Please read quickly. A wholesaler has 3 commodities to sell and has 3 types of customers. Okay, a wholesaler has 3 types of customers. Discount is given as per the following procedure. For DGS and D rates. So DGST it's some department of government supplies and delivered something I had forgotten. For DGST orders, 10% discount is given irrespective of the value of the order. How much may be your purchase order? If it is a DGST order, you will get 10% discount. For orders more than rupees 50,000, the agents get a discount of 15% and the retailer gets a discount of 10%. So if somebody is purchasing more than 50,000 rupees of items, then the agents, because you know in many cases agents are involved, agents they get a discount of 15% and the retailer will get a discount of 10%. For orders of rupees 20,000 or more and up to 50,000, then agents will get less discount, that is 12%, and the retailer will get 8%. For orders less than 20,000, agents will get 8% discount and retailer will get 5% discount. The above rules do not apply to the furniture items. If you are if you are purchasing any furniture item, then these rules are not applied, wherein a flat rate of 10% discount is admissible to all customers irrespective of the value of the order. If you are purchasing a furniture item, you will be straightforward. If you are getting a furniture, you will be given straightforward 10% of the discount. So now we have to design the test cases for this system using decision table based testing. Now for this, in order to design the test cases, what we have to do? First we have to look at the possible conditions. Then I have to identify the possible outcomes. Then I can design the test cases. Then I have to frame the rules, and from the rules each rule will become a test case. Now let's construct the first identify the conditions. You can see several conditions are there. First of all, whether the item, whether the order is a DGST order or not. Accordingly, there will be action. Then your purchase order value, whether it is greater than 50,000. Next condition is whether it is in between 20,000 to 50,000. Next condition is whether it is the purchase order is less than 20,000. Another is whether the item is a furniture item or not. These are the possible inputs. Similarly, the outputs already given. The actions are 10% discount, 15% discount, and whether, again, next thing, whether you are agent or not. So here the other outcomes are 10% discount, for agent 15%, for retailer 10%. Another action is for agent 12%, for retailer 8%. Another action is for agent 8% and for retailer 5%. And 10% discount I have already mentioned. So these are the possible actions. Now let us design the test cases. Now first we have to construct the decision table. I have already told you what are the possible conditions for this problem. First is whether the item is a DGST item or not. Second, whether you are an agent or whether you are a retailer. Next, whether the order is greater than 50,000, or next condition is the order lies in between 20,000 to 50,000. or next condition is whether the order is less than 20,000. And the last condition is whether the item is a furniture item or not. Okay. And what are the the actions? You can see actions varies from 5% discount, 8% discount, 10% discount, 12% discount, and 15% discount that I have mentioned here. 5 actions are there: discount of 5%, discount of 8%, discount of 10%, discount of 12%, and discount of 15%. So now I have to frame, I have to consider all possible combinations of the conditions. I have to consider all the permutations of the combinations of the conditions. So first of all, let's go. We'll see one thing. If it is a DGST, first condition, if it is a DGST order, what you have to give? 10% of the discount. So now I have taken here DGST is true, and whatever, and it is not a agent or retailer, because nothing is mentioned. DGST, it is irrespective of the value of the order, and this agent or what retailer, they are not considered here. And whatever may be the purchase value, that is immaterial now. So 10% discount will be given. Next, we will see if it is not a DGST item, but he is an agent, okay? Not a retailer, he is an agent. And order is greater. Now I am considering first all items which are not furniture. See, because furniture is a separate clause. I am not considering furniture. That's why I see all my items, furniture I have made false, false, false. Only at the last case, I will consider the furniture item. So now for rule 2, if it is not a DGST item, but the purchase value is greater than 50,000, then it is an agent. If the agent, how much you will get? Please see. If it is greater than 50,000, agent will get 15%. So action will be 15% will be taken. This one. Similarly, if it is not a DGST item and he is not an agent, but this is a retailer, and order is greater than 50,000. What is the item? See, for more than 50,000, agent will get 8%. Agent will get 10%. So then agent will get 10% where? This one. Okay. It's not a DGST item, not a furniture item. He is not an agent, but he is a retailer and order is greater than 50,000. What state forward it says? Give 10% discount. So where is 10% discount? So action 3 will be executed. Next is, it is not a only what first case I have taken DGST, all others are not DGST. Then if it is not a DGST item, but he is an agent, not a retailer, and what is the amount in the range 20,000 to 50,000, and not a furniture. So what you will get? I have already told you. If it is 20 to 50,000, agent will get 12%, retailer will get 8%. So what is 12% here? So he will get 12%. For the same thing, if it is an retailer, not an agent, not an agent, how much he will get? 8%. This is already agent will get, retailer will get 8%. And if the value is less than 20%, agent will get 8%, retailer will get 5%. Let's see. This I am taking. Next one is rule 5. If it is what not a DGST item and is not an agent but is a retailer, so how much he should get? For a retailer, I think there's a small mistake might be there. Yes, there's a small mistake. For less than 20%, agent should be 8%. Retailer should be 5%. There's a small mistake. Please correct. So here actually this agent should be if it is a retailer, it should be 5%. Wrongly I have put here 8%. I'm sorry. Please make it 5%. And if it is an agent, then it will be 8%. Please see. For 20,000 less than 20,000, agent will get 8%, retailer will get 5%. So a small typing mistake. So for rule 5, if it is a retailer, he should get 5%. That means here should cost mark should there. And if it is a agent, he should get 8%. Okay. Then rule says what? It is, or we have already seen. No. I'm sorry. This is correct. Rule 6.7 now we are considering. Rule 6.7. This is rule 5 is for what? It is for range 20,000 to 50,000. This is correct. I'm sorry. 20,000 to 50% already 12%, 8%. So that we have already done. Rule 5 is for amount 20,000 to 50,000 and it is retailer, so that it is getting 80%. Now in rule 6 what we are getting? Not a DGST item, amount is 20,000 less than 20,000, the agent will get 8%, retailer will get 5%. That's what I have done here. Agent is true, value is less than 20,000, retailer will get 8%. Second, agent is not true, he is a retailer, value is less than 20%, 20,000, so he will get 5%. So all the conditions we have considered. Now left one is what? Whether it is a furniture item. If it is a furniture item, all other things becomes immaterial. Whether they may be, may not be. If it is 10 furniture, straightforward give 10% discount. So I am considering that this is not a DGST item. All other things will get immaterial, whether he is a retailer or agent, whatever may be the order value. If it is a furniture item, get or give 10% discount. So give 10% discount. So if it is a furniture item and it is not a DGST item, then other values are immaterial. That means whether he is an agent or retailer, whatever may be the order value, we have to give straightforward 10% discount. Okay. So in this way, we have considered, we have constructed the decision table. And how many rules we have framed here? 8 rules. You see all the possible combinations I have considered here. 8 rules we are getting. So now I should try to design 8 number of 10 cases. And accordingly, I have to give the input value. What are the input value here? The type of the customer, then the product, whether it is a furniture or not, then order value. The column 2, 3, 4, they become the input. And the last column is the expected result. Let's see, if you are a DGST customer, we will go to rule 1. Rule 1 says what? You are a DGST customer. And whatever the other values, you have to consider this. So if you are a DGST customer, it is true. It's not a product item, it's not a furniture. Whatever may be the order value, you take any order value, then give 10% discount. Then what is rule 2? Rule 2 is that you are it is not a DGST item. You are an agent and greater than 50,000. Now let's see. For rule 2, you are an agent. It's not a product of furniture product, and order value is greater than 50,000. Order is greater than 50,000 means how much you should get? 15% for the. This is for rule 2. 15% you should give. So let's see. 15% discount. And if same case, you are a retailer, not a furniture product, and order value is greater than 50,000. Like this, rule 2, greater than 50,000, but you are a what? You are a agent. So what we have given already 15%. Then rule 3 is what? You are a retailer and order amount is greater than 50,000. How much discount you should get? 10%. So that's test case ID 3. You are a retailer. It's not a product of furniture product. Amount is greater than 53,000. Greater than 50,000. What is the expected result? Give 10% discount. In this test case, write down the test case means give the inputs and what should be the expected output that you write. But while you are writing your program, suppose you are not getting the result as you are expected, as mentioned in the last column, you are not getting the expected result as mentioned in the last column, then some problem in your program, check the program and correct the error. That is how you can design the test cases. Any doubt, please? So in this way, for this wholesaler problem, we have constructed the test, we have constructed the decision table first, and then we have designed the test cases from this decision table. This is the process by which you can generate black box test cases by using decision tables, where you can consider all the possible combinations of input conditions. So this is not possible by using boundary value analysis or equivalence partitioning. This is the advantage of designing test cases using decision tables, where the combinations of input conditions can be considered. Okay, so this is how you can design test cases using decision tables. We have taken it from Naresh Chavan, chapter 4. You have taken from the software testing book by Naresh Chavan, chapter 4. Please read these examples. There are some other examples and exercises in Rajiv Mal's book and Naresh Chavan book. Please try to do those things. Thank you very much. So, any doubt, please?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Okay,
yes.
sir, you go on.
Sir, in the
yes,
sir,
yes, please.
Sir, is it given in the question that DGSD will not order the furniture?
Just I'm coming. 1 minute. So what you are saying?
Sir, is it given in the question that the DGSD will not buy the furnitures?
No. It's saying that all those whatever rules we have got, these rules do not apply to what furnitures. So that means these DGST customers, even if it is a furniture, that will not be applicable to DGST customers. If it is a furniture, that is not applicable to DGST. DGST means straightforward, they will get only 10% of this discount. For clarity, you can take another, say 9% or something. Here, actually, these two 10% are actually classing. DGST also 10%. This furniture is getting 10%. That's why I think you are getting confused. You make separate discounts. So, if it is a DGST, suppose 9%. And if it is a furniture items also they are not applicable to DGST. Furniture means just 10%. Then this 9% will be suppressed. And if it is DGST, you will get 9%, and then this furniture item will be suppressed. Furniture will be false. These you can see here. I think these are mutually exclusive. DGST things cannot get furniture discount, or furniture things cannot be, that discount cannot be given to DGST customers. Yes, please. You take actually two. Yes, please.
Sir, if an item is DGS and D order and the value of P also greater than 50,000, sir,
yes.
Then there will be ambiguity, na, sir. I mean, sir, if the order is DGS and D, we have to give 10% of discount.
Yes, correct.
And if the order is more than 50,000, then we have to give a discount of 50% to retailer and 10% to 10% to retailer and 15% to agent. Sir, then there will be ambiguity, sir.
Please try to understand. If you are a DGST customer, then whether you may be a retailer or a wholesale or a agent, whatever the amount may be, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, straightforward you will get 10%. That's why I have put the immaterial conditions. If it is a DGST one, then the concept of agent retailer not applicable, everybody will get, and whatever may be the amount, you will get 10%. Now please tell me why is the doubt here? Why the confusion will come? Yes, please. See, I am saying if you are a DGST order, DGST customer, for your order, whatever the value may be, whatever the value of order value may be, you will be straightforward given 10% discount. Maybe what, 20,000, 10,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. So why the confusion will come here? I have accordingly done it. Na? If it is DGST is true, then agent retailer does not arise this condition, so they will be false. And for any value, you will get 10%. Okay.
Yes.
So no problem.
It is a kind of priority or something.
Yes, actually, see, I have told you, DGST means the Department of Government or say General Supplies, General Supply and Distribution, DGST. So that's the government has a scheme. You just see, go to website of DGST means government has given this decision. This is government price. So that is discount is applicable to all. So that's why we purchase anything else from department institute, we follow DGST because no monopoly, nothing, government's prescribed rule regulations. So it is easy actually. No audit will object, like those kind of things. Okay. So for DGST rate, you will get a special discount. Those are government rules. This is a specific case. You will get specialized discounts. Yes. Any other questions? Somebody is asking something. Okay. I think if any questions you can. Yes, tomorrow is not a holiday. If you want, I can change the timing. But tomorrow is not a holiday. You just discuss. If you want, I can if 8 o'clock is not acceptable, we can take another time. So discuss and let me know. You want to take some other time or 8 whatever?
No, sir, that's fine. 8 o'clock.
Okay then.